This podcast is an invitation to feel and experience the souls of famous old Hollywood homes and to have an in-depth journey to the areas where they're located through interviews with longtime residents. Either you're a fan of old Hollywood in Los Angeles, planning to have a vacation, or, an even bigger step, considering a certain area for your future home. This is your opportunity to receive valuable information and insightful advice you won't find anywhere else.
Hello, and welcome to my podcast. Are you in the mood for California? Today we'll feel and experience Topanga, featuring an interview with soulful Elise Mallove.
First of all, Topanga's pretty geographically separated from a lot of the rest of the city, and we're up in the mountains. And so that really informs so much of the energy of the place and the people and everything. And Topanga's always been a very creative, very kind of laid back, relaxed place where nature really dominates our lives. And things move a lot slower up here. And, the nature brings such a feeling of beauty and peace to our lives.
Masha Korpacheva is a California-based realtor and a member of the National Association of Realtors in Los Angeles. She's an advocate for selling and buying homes with soul and practicing mindfulness in real estate. With master's degrees in spiritual psychology and linguistics, Masha brings all of her skills to work with her clients. An intuit and empath, she has touched many lives with her outstanding ability to see beyond the visible and helping to come to better understanding of issues and their resolutions. An adventurous world traveler, from climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania to exploring the Galapagos Islands, Masha has a particular passion for the City of Angels. Having landed in this paradise and adopted it as her home, she's been sharing old Hollywood stories since 2007. In the mood for California, feel the soul of old Hollywood.
And now, are you ready to experience Topanga? Topanga is one of those places that feels almost hidden from the rest of Los Angeles, a little slice of quiet tucked between rugged mountains and lush canyons. It's a small but vibrant community that has always embraced a sense of freedom, an openness to nature, and a love for creativity. Walking through Topanga, you can almost sense the layers of history woven into its landscape, from the native tribes who lived off its land to the artists and free spirits who later made it their haven. Topanga is like a living time capsule, capturing decades of California's bohemian spirit in the winding trails and canopy of oak and sycamore trees. Historically, the land that makes up Topanga was home to the Tongva people, indigenous tribes who thrived in this beautiful setting, living harmoniously with nature for thousands of years. They called this area Topanga, which means the place above, a nod to its high elevation and peaceful atmosphere. Evidence of the Tongva culture remains in the form of ancient grinding stones and petroglyphs that can still be found in the area. This strong connection to nature and the sacredness of the land is a spirit that endures in Topanga to this day. In the early 1900s, Topanga began to see new settlers who were drawn to its remote beauty. By the 1920s and 30s, the area was filled with small cabins, home to families who wanted to escape the hustle of the city. These cabins still dot the landscape, giving Topanga its rustic charm. Many of these structures have been lovingly restored, and they now serve as reminders of Topanga's early settlers' days, when families would gather around bonfires, tell stories under the stars, and immerse themselves in the peace and quiet that the canyon provides. One notable property from this period is the Mountain Mermaid, a striking landmark that has been transformed over the years but retains its original charm. Built in 1930, the Mountain Mermaid originally served as a country club where people would gather to swim, dance, and socialize in an exotic setting complete with waterfalls and fountains. Later, it became a private residence, then a rehearsal space for the Rolling Stones, and eventually an artist's retreat. Today, the Mountain Mermaid is a treasured historic property, not just for its beautiful architecture, but for the stories it holds. Each era seems to have left its mark on the place, adding to its allure. Then, of course, there is the Inn of the Seventh Ray, a restaurant that feels like it was born out of the very soul of Topanga. Founded in the 1970s during the height of California's New Age movement, the restaurant is nestled along a creek and surrounded by gardens and twinkling lights. People often say that there is something magical about dining there, especially at night when the air is filled with the sound of running water and soft music. The inn was once the site of an old church, and some say you can feel the lingering sense of spirituality that permeates the place. It's a beloved destination, not just for the food, but for the atmosphere, a place where you can slow down and enjoy the feeling of being somewhere timeless. During the 1960s, Topanga became a refuge for artists, musicians, and writers who wanted to live close to nature but still within reach of the city. It wasn't unusual to find legendary musicians like Neil Young, Jim Morrison, and Joni Mitchell wandering around, inspired by the beauty and seclusion of the canyon. Some of their songs were written right here, drawing from Topanga's energy and the community's laid-back bohemian vibe. This spirit has lingered, making Topanga a creative sanctuary for artists, healers, and free spirits of all kinds. There is something magical about Topanga's landscape that keeps calling people back, inviting them to stay a little longer, to breathe a little deeper. You can feel it in the historic homes, the winding trails, and the way the canyon comes alive at dusk. The quiet, the stars, the whispers of history, they all come together, making Topanga a place that feels like it exists just a bit outside of time, where the past, present, and future meet under the California sun. And here we are. Welcome to Topanga. I'm so thrilled to have Elise Mallove here with me. Elise Mallove's connection to natural and plant-based healing began in early childhood, despite it being neither accepted nor practiced in her family. She was drawn to flowers, often picking them, hugging them in the privacy of her room, and even eating them. In her early 20s, Elise moved to Los Angeles and soon found a small shop specializing in natural skin and body care. Stepping into that shop felt like a profound awakening for her, and she spent every spare moment there until she was eventually hired. This led her to become a licensed esthetician focused on natural skincare. It was through her practice that she met her husband, a holistic MD, and together they shared a journey in holistic health for 25 years. Her flourishing skincare practice shifted when she lost her office space. This coincided with her move to Topanga in 1988, where she realized she was burned out from giving so much of herself. She spent several years running her husband's office until she felt a renewed calling to help others. She went on to study flower essence therapy, craniosacral therapy, and trained as a hospice volunteer. With COVID, Elise decided to close her practice and retire as she was approaching 70. She now spends her days happily in her cozy treehouse, finding peace and joy in observing nature, especially her neighbors, the birds and squirrels. Though she and her husband divorced after 25 years, they remain close friends. Today, Elise continues to craft flower essences for friends in need, but her greatest joy comes from savoring the simple pleasures of her life in Topanga, moments she is going to share with us. Hello, Elise.
Hi, Masha.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to have you as my guest today. Thank you so much for finding the time.
Sure. I'm super excited to be here.
Well, when I met you, I literally thought that you are the embodiment of Topanga in some way, and you exude just this incredible energy. And I think it will be very special to find out what you actually think and feel about Topanga.
Yes.
So, Topanga has a very distinct energy about it compared to the rest of Los Angeles. So how would you describe the vibe of Topanga, and in what ways do you feel it differs from the other parts of the city?
First of all, Topanga's pretty geographically separated from a lot of the rest of the city, and we're up in the mountains. And so that really informs so much of the energy of the place and the people and everything. And Topanga's always been a very creative, very kind of laid back, relaxed place where nature really dominates our lives. And things move a lot slower up here. And, the nature brings such a feeling of beauty and peace to our lives.
Mhm.
And it also, unfortunately, makes us the disaster epicenter of Southern California. So there's, a lot of fear and destruction that nature can bring. And, in Topanga, people have to understand and accept that nature is really in charge up here. And we just, we have to live with that, whatever that is. And because of all that, we have to be a lot more self-sufficient than most people that live in Los Angeles. We have to worry about things that other people don't even ever have to think about, not just, the natural disasters and road closures and things like that, but we have a lot of wildlife here. And a lot of that wildlife can be very scary, rattlesnakes, black widow spiders, scorpions, mountain lions,
Mhm.
these things that are very real and can be really dangerous. And they're very much part of our lives here. So that's really different.
Yes, it sounds very different. It's almost like you don't have to take a trip to Africa. You can just come to Topanga.
Well, in many ways, that's true. We don't have the same wildlife, but we have a lot of wildlife up here, and
Mhm.
it's amazing that in such a major world city that you can be so close to that, and at the same time be so incredibly removed from city life and really living, very, very closely with nature in all of its glory.
Yes, it sounds like it. And also, it looks as if humans who choose to live in Topanga truly choose to reconnect with their original self. Because when, as you mentioned, nature is in charge and nature dominates your lives in Topanga, you have to be, kind of like brought back to where, we all started.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And, that's always been something that has kind of separated people into two groups. There are those, that really thrive in this kind of environment and want to be here, and we don't get phased. We have deep respect for nature and all that it can do, but we're not phased by it. We're not scared away by it. And then you have the people who just don't understand that, and they think, oh, Topanga is so cool. I just want to live there. And they come up here, and as soon as things start happening, they're just so not prepared that they don't understand that they're not in charge. Nature is. So, we old timers here kind of, hope that kind of separates the wheat from the chaff, and that the people
Yes.
can't really just go back to where they came from. And that does happen quite a lot. You'll see it happen a lot after a big disaster, or like this past year, we had our Topanga Canyon Boulevard, like the main, practically the only in and out route in here was closed due to a massive slide for almost 6 months. And that had just major effect on everybody's life. And a lot of people just realized this is not for them. They can't live like this. And so bye-bye, they go away.
Yes, sounds like it. So, Elise, what actually drew you to Topanga back in 1988, and how has the area changed since then? Maybe its spiritual and natural essence remained the same, or did it change as well?
Well, the first part of your question, I kind of came up here on a fluke a little bit. My husband at the time and I were looking to buy our first house. We were living in Santa Monica, and we hadn't really considered Topanga, but someone told us about a particular house up here. So we came up to look, and we suddenly realized, oh my God, this is, first of all, so beautiful. But at that time, we saw that we were able to, get a lot more for our money than what we were seeing down in Santa Monica at that time. So we ended up being so fortunate that we found a home that was just starting to be built, and it wasn't even on the market. And, we had looked at a lot of other places, and nothing really was moving me. And then we went to this place that wasn't even a house yet. It was just a frame. And I knew instantly that was my house. And we bought it that very day. And I lived there for the next 33 years. And, that was just the great gift of my life, was to find that spot. And things really, really changed a lot up here since then, but more recently. For a long time, things didn't seem to change. And then I'd say, maybe 10 years ago, everything changed, and the changes started coming very fast and furious. And to the outsider, you wouldn't really notice that much. It still looks so beautiful and feels incredible, and people come up here and they just feel changed by being in nature. So thank God, that's still happening. But if you know the place, you see how much has really changed. And it's a lot of it has to do with the way things have been developed, but also there's just been a big shift in the demographics up here. And, a lot of the older families and people have left, for whatever reasons. Maybe they died, maybe they moved, maybe, whatever life has happened. But there was just a big shift in a lot of homes being on the market, a lot of new people coming up. And that really changed things. There's also a lot of Airbnbs up here that has had a very, very dramatic effect on the community in mostly negative ways. And unfortunately, a lot of the people who come up here are bringing their city ways with them. And we always had a saying up in Topanga that don't change Topanga, let Topanga change you. We've always tried to live that way. But it seems like a lot of the people who have come up here more recently really don't get it. And they really want to change things. And they are. So it's hard to see that. But at the same time, I remind myself of how much, beautiful open land is still here. And we have our state park, and we have, incredible hiking trails. And I'm so lucky because I'm in a, beautiful, quiet, remote spot. So I don't really have to deal with a lot of that stuff. But things have really changed a lot here. And not all of it's bad. There's a lot of new energy. There's kind of a renaissance creatively going on up here with art and music. And, a lot of people wanting to be here, wanting to experience what we have to offer. So, there's good and bad to it. But, a lot of the old timers are not as thrilled about all the changes. And, I'm kind of half and half with it.
That's good. That's good. So, Elise, maybe you can share some of your favorite places in Topanga, whether it's a local restaurant or a cafe or a shop. What are the places that, in your opinion, reflect the spirit of this unique community?
Well, there's a few. And I would say that, well, first of all, we have a couple of annual events that happen up here that are really what Topanga is all about. And if anybody, wanted to come and really get a sense of the people, the energy, the vibe, the beauty, come to Topanga Days, which is always a 3-day festival on Memorial Day weekend. And it's music and it's like a country fair and it's all kinds of stuff going on. It's really the essence of Topanga, and it's been happening for a very long time. There's Mimosa Cafe, which is, where all the cool people hang out. If you want to get a real Topanga vibe, you go to the Spiral Staircase, which is the bookstore gift shop that's part of the Inn of the Seventh Ray, which is also, a really well-known part of Topanga. And it does definitely have that very Topanga energy.
Mm-hmm.
There's Corazon Performing Arts is a wonderful space where there's not only world-class world music of all sorts almost every night, but wonderful schedule of classes of dance and performance and all kinds of really interesting things. So, and it's very much a community space. The original store up here, Topanga Homegrown, is just the best place for any kind of gift or clothing or just to come in and hang out with the girls. It's just a real Topanga out. Topanga Film Festival coming up next week or this week even. Wonderful experience of Topanga. So these are some of the things that I love.
They sound wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
So, Elise, my next question is about your journey, because you've been passionate about natural healing since childhood, even though it was not quite accepted in your family. So, what was it about plants and flowers that first spoke to you as a child?
I don't know if I can put words to it, but the connection that I've always had with flowers and then with plants a little bit later, it's just something that, like, I remember being very young and sitting at we were having a holiday meal and we had a beautiful centerpiece on the table. And I was staring at those flowers and all I wanted to do was to eat them.
Mm.
I just wanted them in me. And I didn't understand that there's other ways to do that, but I would start eating them. And they didn't taste good, but it didn't matter. I just wanted to do that. And then I remember also as a young child, I loved lilacs and we had lilacs growing and my mom put a bouquet of them in my bedroom and I remember closing the door and then just going up to those flowers. And I just had this overwhelming need to like hug them, put my arms around this bouquet and just hold them. And then, so these were, young childhood things. I had no concept of any of what this meant or why was I drawn to these things, but I was so drawn to them. And, later on when I would see botanical drawings and things, it was like they were speaking to me. And something inside me would just get so excited. And when I grew up on the East Coast, but I moved out here in 1978. And very shortly after I was here, I remember reading about a little shop that specialized in all natural body care and skincare. And at that time, there was nothing like that. That wasn't a thing at all. So, and when I read that, it was as if some light bulb went off in me. And I just thought like, oh my God, I have to find this place. And I couldn't remember the name of it. And I just searched and eventually I found it. And when I walked in there, I was just completely overwhelmed because it was like everything was all in this one little spot. And I just, would go there like all the time. I just wanted to be in that environment. And eventually I started to work there. And that, really is what got me started on my path. of first natural skincare and then natural healing.
Wow, wow. And then you continued also working with your husband as a holistic MD, and that must have been a fascinating partnership. So, how would you say the two of you complemented each other in your practices?
Well, his work was very unique and unusual. He truly embodied what it meant to be a holistic doctor. And he was an MD, but he employed a lot of different types of natural healing. And he was very, very interested in really, really having the deepest understanding of his patients. And so not just physically and with their symptoms and stuff, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And the work that I was doing with flower essences is very much in that realm of, working with the personality, working with the emotions. And so when he would have a patient who he felt really needed a lot more exploration of what was happening with them emotionally, and that maybe that's where the roots of a lot of their problems might be, even though he also did flower essence work, he would turn that part over to me, and he would focus on other aspects of them. But it was really wonderful because he and I could sit and have these very fascinating discussions about this patient, and we'd put our heads together, and we'd share ideas and thoughts, and he would help me see things, I would help him see things. And together, like with the two of us working together, we were just able to give so much more to each patient. Well, not every patient, just the patients who he felt would benefit most from the work that I did. And that same thing, because I did craniosacral as well, when he felt that that's what would serve one of his patients best, he would send them to me. And so it was just a really beautiful partnership. We loved being able to work together and work on the same person together.
Wow. Wow, that's wonderful. And what does being a flower essence practitioner and craniosacral therapist mean to you? How do you think these practices changed your approach to healing?
Both of those modalities deal with healing at a very deep and energetic level. And they both have the potential to affect healing at the soul level. And I've heard both of these practices explained as being like a midwife to the soul. And that's something that really resonated with me. And they both facilitate an unwinding of the whole being. When you are working at that level, it affects you a lot too. It's like you have a way of seeing where you're at, and your own blocks and issues that you have are much more, they come to the fore a lot more clearly. And also, I recognize that I have to really address my own stuff if I want to be in a position to help someone else. So it really allowed me to go more deeply into my own healing process and to have a lot of compassion and empathy for anyone that I'm working with.
Wow, that is so beautiful. That's beautiful. And now, as you approach 70 and reflect on your life's journey, what do you think has been the most rewarding aspect of your work in natural healing?
Well, for sure, it's helping other people. There's being able to help them physically, emotionally, just making a difference in people's lives has been by far the most rewarding part of it for me.
Beautiful. And also, Elise, you've been a hospice volunteer at some point, and that is very deeply meaningful work. How did this experience shape your view on life, death, and the human spirit?
I was drawn to this work because I had a lot of death in my young life, and really throughout my entire life ever since. But, to try to come to terms with some sort of understanding of what does this mean at a young age, was a lot for me. And I was very, very fortunate to be able to hear a lecture when I was 16 years old by the eminent psychiatrist Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, whose whole work was about near-death experience, the dying experience, and the afterlife. And so that at an early age, I started my explorations of those things to try to, help me make sense of it for myself. So I just felt a calling to do that kind of work. And I felt very moved to be with people in their dying process. So,
how did this experience shape your view on life, death, and the human spirit?
well, I lost any fear of death for myself. And actually, it's not that I look forward to it, but I see it as, the next great adventure. And I'm excited about it. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid. I've really lost that fear. I don't want to suffer, and be in pain or any of that, but I'm not afraid to die. I believe personally in reincarnation, that our souls have a journey, and that everything that happens to us in life, whether we like it or not, is perfect. That's my mantra. And that has really helped me so much whenever I'm struggling or I feel like something, unfair and bad is happening to me. I have to remember this. And I know that this is just part of my journey. And this is happening because this is where I need to grow and this is where I need to learn things. And so I just try to, to work with whatever is happening in my life that maybe does not seem very positive. And that's, that comes out of the work that I've done with death and dying.
Wow, that must have been a very enlightening experience.
Yes, very enlightening. And, I did a lot of work during the AIDS crisis and, really watched a lot of people die, but people that were young and in the prime of their life and, beautiful, beautiful people. And, that's really tough. It's really hard to make sense of something like that. But at the same time, it helps you to have such profound appreciation for the gift of life.
Yes, very true, Elise. And my last question to you, even though you have now retired from your practice, I know you still make flower essences for your friends. What advice would you give to someone looking to start their own journey into natural healing or flower essence therapy, or maybe advice to someone who would like to move to Topanga?
The first part of advice for someone that wants to go into a healing work, I would say, really be clear on what is your motivation for this, because I think that unless it's coming from real compassion and desire to help people, that it's going to be a challenging road for you if you don't approach it like that. And, you really have to want to help people. And you really have to be able to take whatever's happening in your own life and put it aside if you're going to work with someone else. Even it's just for that session, but to be able to clear yourself and just become a very clear channel where you can allow healing to come through you without anything getting in the way. So that's one thing. The other is, when you do this kind of work, you're very susceptible to picking up people's energy and things that your clients releasing maybe, or just emotions that they're having, or even physical things. There's really an exchange of energy that happens, and it can be problematic if you don't know how to deal with it. And so you have to understand that and do things to protect yourself before you begin working on someone, and then be able to clear that energy after you've completed your work with them and after they've left. And you've got to clear that energy from you and from your space. And those are really important things that will make a huge difference in the kind of practitioner you are, and how well you can, manage taking on and working with other people's energy.
Very, very true. And one last advice to people who would want to move to Topanga.
Well, if you are going to come up here, you have to understand that it's a small town. There's not a lot of restaurants. There's not a lot of services. You're going to have to drive, down the mountain road to do a lot of things. So this is a good place for people who like to be, close to home and like to be in nature. And that, again, like you're really going to be at the mercy of nature, and you're going to lose power, and you're going to lose the ability to have any contact with the outside world. That's happened to us a lot lately. Like just a few weeks ago, they, turned off the power because it was windy and hot. And without that, we don't have cell service. We don't have internet. We have no communication whatsoever. And if there's a disaster, you're not necessarily going to know about it. So these are things that people need to understand, and they have to, be the kind of person that can hang with that type of living, because it's not for everybody. It's isolating. You've got narrow roads that are a lot of blind curves, and it's driving is dangerous up here.
Yes.
It's not for the faint of heart. You got to be a little bit hardy to live up here.
A lot of things to take into consideration.
Yes, it's very different.
So, Elise, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your heart, and for shining your spirit, and telling us all these incredible things about Topanga, which is definitely a very, very unique area of Los Angeles that I'm very partial to. And I hope to see you sometime soon.
I hope so too, Masha. And I want to invite you to my treehouse.
Oh, yes. That will be our next episode, all about your treehouse. Thank you, Liz. Bye-bye.
Okay, my dear. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you very much for tuning in to Feel and Experience Topanga with my special guest, Elise Mallove. If you enjoy my podcast, In the Mood for California, please sign up for future episodes at your preferred platform, and please leave your feedback. I really appreciate your time and support. You can follow me on Instagram at In the Mood for California, and check out my website, www.inthemoodforcalifornia.com. Selling and buying homes with soul is not just my real estate strategy. It's an intuitive and holistic approach that embraces your values, aspirations, and conscious intentions. If you want to discover the power of mindfulness in your real estate journey with my compassionate guidance, I'm here for you. Next time, we'll dive into the enchanting world of Malibu Lake, a secluded oasis surrounded by the rugged beauty of the Santa Monica Mountains. So looking forward to sharing the hidden magic of Malibu Lake with you.
In the Mood for California, feel the soul of Old Hollywood.